Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learn back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the natal chart of Tia Gomez. And first of all, Tia, what I want to talk about is your basics, your three, what I consider the three main proponents in your natal chart, which is the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Of course, you have a Cancer Sun, Leo Moon, and Leo Ascendant. So obviously your projection, what you're showing people is a lot different than what as far as your actual true personality, your basic character, which is identified by your sun sign, the more introverted Cancer. Leo rising energy coming out, that's really more your projection of self, your astrological mask, your facade. You're obviously showing a lot more flamboyant, extroverted, and gregarious and very vibrant energy, more so. Outwardly, and what it does is it masks a more sensitive and introverted Cancerian sun and a more shy and more timid Cancerian sun. Now, breaking this down like systematically, as far as the Sun, Moon, Ascendant, the way it goes is the Sun's energy is injected into the Moon, and then it's flavored by the Ascendant. You're being a Cancer Sun, the Sun sign in astrology can represent your basic wants. Now, the basic wants for Cancer can be tied in with one's emotional security. Given that the Moon is in Leo, that might be maybe injected into getting attention, accolades, recognition, being recognized for your achievements, and in doing so, and given that this is you're talking about a Leo ascendant, doing so with a lot of that Leo ferocity, and doing so also with a lot of self-assuredness, a lot of confidence as well. And this could be accomplished by, and also just by being very gregarious, outwardly very extroverted. These are the ways that where the attention can come, and getting it, and also getting recognition for certain things, and it can be done on a very large scale given that you have a Leo ascendant. Now, as far as looking at the chart pictorially, is what I'm doing is I'm giving you an overview of your chart. So the majority of your planets, there's 6 on the bottom half of the chart, 4 on the top. It's a fairly good balance, but you have a little bit more on the bottom than on the top part of the chart, which could indicate being a little bit more introverted than extroverted, a little more subjective than objective, and a little bit also more pessimistic than optimistic. But it's really not much of a difference. You can have a fairly good balance between the optimism and pessimism, and extroversion and introversion, and being subjective and objective. Now, you also, in your chart, I saw that you have 6 of the 10 planets are on the left side of the chart. Of course, the left side of the chart consists of houses 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, and 3. And this is an indicator when you have a preponderance of planetary energy on the left side of the chart. It's more indicative of self-reliance, independence. You likely don't need others to cajole you or coax you into doing projects. You're often a self-driving person, self-starter, and self-sufficient, and you don't necessarily have to collaborate with others in order to get many of your projects and endeavors completed. Now, looking at the quadrants in your chart, of course, there's 4 quadrants in the chart. First quadrant is comprised of houses 1, 2, and 3. Second quadrant consists of houses 4, 5, and 6. The third quadrant are houses 7, 8, 9. Fourth quadrant, of course, are houses 10, 11, and 12. Now, what I notice, you have a fairly good distribution of these planets as far as the quadrants go. You have 3 planets in the first quadrant, 3 of them are in the second quadrant, and also 3 of them are in the fourth quadrant. Now, the one that's just got 1 planet is the fourth quadrant. Now, as far as the first, second, and fourth quadrant goes, having 3 in each of them, that could show very good balance and distribution. As far as the first quadrant goes, it's more about self-interest and things that are that are about really you, that can be beneficial to you. It's a little bit more egocentric than the other quadrants on average, but in the second quadrant, houses 4, 5, and 6, that shows that there is a fair amount of energy that goes into matters with family, with children, and also even working laboriously in terms of supporting as supportness. You might be a person that works very hard in terms of maintaining a good family life, a home, and children if you do have any. Now, with 3 in the fourth quadrant, this shows adequate amount of energy also into things that are more global, environmental, helping more things on a more of a worldly scale collectively. And also, too, the fact you just have one planet in that third quadrant, of course, again, those are houses 7, 8, and 9. That's the third quadrant in an astrology chart. This tells me yeah, where you may have some energy that's lacking, it could be in terms of your relationships and whether it's your important connections, significant other, your intimate relationships, and even those that might be, considering the ninth house is involved in foreigners as well. And also to keep in mind that the seventh house being of relationships, the eighth house is transformation, ninth house is are matters that are connected, really like with your philosophy. So it might be difficult for others to perhaps maybe transform your philosophical beliefs. So and you might be somebody that might be very say intransigent as far as what your belief system is because of the lack of this energy that is in your in that seventh, eighth, and ninth house area. So anyway, or quadrant, third quadrant in the chart. So anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is you have a preponderance of major astrological influences in fixed signs in your chart. And when I look at that, what that tells me is that your nature is such on the positive side where you can have a lot of persistence and tenacity and follow through on a lot of your projects and endeavors. You may go very methodically with them, but you like to see things often be completed thick and thin, regardless of the trials and tribulations you may encounter in doing so. But on the negative side, though, it could indicate too that that others may be the ones that have to make more of the compromises in your connections, in your relationships. It can show certain lack of adaptability in some cases. You only have one major astrological influence in mutable signs. And when I'm talking about the major astrological influences, I'm talking about the 10 planets, the ascendant, and midheaven. So but anyway, it could show a very intractable nature, and really where your mind is made up, that is pretty much it. And it's going to be very hard. You're going to be very reluctant to change it once you've decided a certain course of action. But it could give a very indomitable spirit, very strong willpower, and again, very strong follow through on completing projects and staying with them to the bitter end. Now, I noticed too that most of your major astrological influences are in fire signs. Now, given that the majority of them are in fire, this could indicate, a nature, that's very vibrant, enthusiastic, a lot of exuberance in what you do. It could show where you have put a lot of fire. It could show a very fiery temperament. Person that really can be strongly about leadership as opposed to being a subordinate or a subservient role. And it could also, and especially having a Leo ascendant, this could show a lot of, just a lot of energy just in general. And anyway, and this is to again pointing out to the fact that there is just a lot of this energy can go into also a lot of drive as well. And again, going to the fact that it can give very strong leadership prowess and ability, and you may be somebody that might have difficulty working under somebody, and you like to be somebody. It tells me that you'd like to be at the head, really at the be the front runner in terms of whatever the position you want to be, more inclined to lead as opposed to serve. So anyway, well, the next thing up is, as far as the chart or final signature goes, that is in Leo. And the final signature in astrology can give an overall tone or feel to the chart, but at least in my opinion, it doesn't supersede or surpass the sun, moon, or ascendant in terms of its significance or its importance. So, but at the same time, given that the final signature is in Leo, and the fact that your sun and moon are also in Leo, what that tells me is that basically reaffirms and reinforces that Leo energy and adds a little bit more Leo flavoring to it. So really, your nature, I mean, your being this is the final signature, that this shows a lot of, I mean, a lot of extroversion, flamboyancy, a lot of courage and fortitude. That you may have very gregarious nature, but it can be very showy at the same time, and a person that likes to entertain others as well, and somebody that has a very sunny disposition. Having that Leo ascendant, though, that of course is coming out very blatantly, very outwardly. Again, as the ascendant is the projection of yourself, and it's what others can see very readily, and especially on a first impression. So anyway, hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, also your chart ruler, which of course is the ruler of your first house, which is the sun, it's posited in your 12th house. So basically, where your chart ruler is posited in your chart is where a lot of your ascendant energy is being expressed in that sector of life where it's being injected in. And given that it's the 12th house, a lot of that Leo rising energy, you might be a little bit more shy than the typical Leo. And keep in mind that the ruler is the sun in introverted Cancer. And being in the 12th house of isolation, where a lot of this Leo energy might be going into behind the scenes activities and also just private matters in solitude and seclusion. The 12th house can also represent an aunt or an uncle, so it might be, you might be very involved with matters that are pertaining to them as well, and a lot of that Leo rising energy might actually surprisingly come out stronger with them than maybe it does with some other people. So anyway, now, another thing I noticed saw in your astrological chart is that you have a pair of interceptions in your chart, and you may or may not know interceptions in astrology is when you have a zodiac sign that is completely enclosed in a house. Now you have the zodiac, and when you have one zodiac sign intercepted, the opposite one, of course, is going to be intercepted as well. Now you have the zodiac sign Cancer intercepted in your 12th house, and you have Capricorn intercepted in your 6th house. When you have interceptions in astrology, they often can manifest a little bit distortion and lack of equilibrium in terms of the energy, and that energy may be somewhat suppressed because the sign is completely enclosed and locked in that house, and the sign of course does not fall on a house cusp as a result. Having the zodiac sign Cancer in the 12th house, what that tells me is that a lot of that Cancerian energy may not always be easy to bring out. Not only is it in the 12th house a restriction, but it's also intercepted, and it might be more difficult for you to say nurture, which is of course a Cancerian thing, nurture your private life, your matters in solitude, and your seclusion, and or it could be where, I mean, you're looking at Capricorn being intercepted in the 6th house, it might be some difficulty finding that structure and discipline in your work life or daily routine, or you might overemphasize one of the things I mentioned over the other, because again, a lot of this could be about a lack of equilibrium and balance between the two interceptions. Now, Last but not least, I wanted to point out what I thought was a very significant configuration I saw in your natal chart. And you have a fixed T-square configuration in your chart, and that consists of the moon in Leo in the first house, making an opposition to your Saturn and Aquarius in the seventh house, and both are squared by Mars and Taurus in the 10th house. Now, in generally speaking, a fixed T-square in astrology, I mean, it could have a lot of negatives to it. It could give a lot of, it could be about holding on to a lot of difficulties for a prolonged period and maybe stubbornly sticking with things that may not be that really there may not be any point in doing so. I mean, T-squares in astrology can also give a lot of obstacles, obstructions, and trials and tribulations and some difficulties. But at the same time, if one is able to work through them, it could manifest in doing something where with a lot of inordinate willpower and a very strong spirit and a lot of determination and fixity and purpose and intractable nature may be able to get through a lot of difficulties and a lot of adversity that a lot of other people may not have been able to do. What I want to break this down, though, is systematically, of course, looking at the opposition, okay, between the moon and Leo in the first house and Saturn and Aquarius in the seventh house. Well, the moon and Leo in the first house can be in nature. I mean, this could be about a perpetual tug of war between the moon and Leo, Saturn and Aquarius energy. Moon and Leo energy in the first house can be about really having that strong emotional need for attention, for your recognition, for applause, for getting recognized, for your achievements, and also popularity. But when you have and then being in the first house, of course, for very strong personal gratification and satisfaction. The fact it makes the opposition to Saturn and Aquarius, though, Saturn and Aquarius in the seventh house could be about more of that responsibility toward internet connections or your friends that are significant connections, or even selfless responsibility or work regarding selfless energy in your relationships, or even work in your astrological connections. Well, when you have that opposition, when you look at the focal point is that place of which of course in this case is Mars and Taurus in the 10th house, which of course could be a point of over accentuation, over emphasis, and that is set up to try to reconcile and resolve that energy that is made by the opposition that I just described. Having the Mars in Taurus posited in your 10th house, well, that could manifest in really a lot of very plotting, deliberate, methodical, persistent energy in career-related matters. But you wonder, well, how does that resolve the issue with the opposition? Well, and to you, it might be where that energy could be actually taking care of both needs, because the Mars and Taurus in the 10th house, again, could be a lot of persistent energy in one's career and even attaining notoriety. Having the moon in Leo, that could satisfy that emotional need for that notoriety, that recognition, for applause, for popularity, and also it might satisfy that need to some degree for that work, that energy in your perhaps even astrological relationships, or being able to really help responsibility for others in general, your friends, that can be important connections, because through that career, that energy that you might be bringing into your career, that is how you may be forming those connections as well, and allowing you to be in a position to do that work, putting that laborious Saturn energy into something for your friends, which could be indicated by Aquarius, or people that you know through the internet, which could be Aquarius, and in the seventh house of your relationships and important connections. So Tia and whoever else is watching this out there, that'll complete this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Leonard saying stay well.